Hello, it's Wednesday and it's time for another Courier Live. We're a little bit later than we normally are today because we have a special guest who's going to tell us a little bit about building games using the Unity platform. Is it platform or framework? What do they go by?
Normally engine.
Oh, the Unity engine, and we're going to add some notifications. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, so I am Matt Graber, and I had the pleasure of winning the sponsored prize from Courier at the BitCamp Hackathon a couple months ago at University of Maryland. Mm-hmm. I just graduated from there. I'll be attending grad school in the fall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so happy to be here and happy to talk about adding some notifications into these games.
Yeah, this was actually kind of a unique project that we saw. So I don't think it had occurred to us to like add notifications to a game. And so to give you a little context, I think it was back in April for BitCamp, which is a hackathon that I try to attend in person regularly. This year it was virtual, but he created a game called Package Person. And it had a really cool feature to where you could, once your game ended and you went onto the leaderboard, you were able to get notifications. So there was a receipt telling you like what your score was, but then it also kind of sent out messages to everybody else on the leaderboard. So if you got knocked off, the leaderboard or bested, you could send a taunt, which I thought was pretty cool. But do you want to just like quickly say like what the inspiration for that was? Because we thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought when I was doing that was that, I'd made a lot of like random dumb Unity games with my friends, just in a couple hours over the past year or so, just because we've been bored during COVID. And a lot of these we ended up putting just little leaderboards in them. They only keep the top 10. It's kind of just like an arcade. Sure. Where you go and you play your game, then you get on the leaderboard, and then the leaderboard stays on that machine wherever you played it. So my thought with the notifications was that if you have a leaderboard that's local to a specific machine, and then somebody else comes and knocks you off the leaderboard or something, then you're never going to know unless you happen to be going back to that same machine, unless you get notified about it. So yeah. That was my thought.
Yeah, always have them coming back. Yeah, so I thought that was a very cool thing to do, especially getting people back to like feed more quarters in the machine, like in this, if it was at the arcade. But today we're going to not do something as complicated as that, but we're going to start exploring building games using Unity, which is new to me, and then adding on the ability to receive a notification after the game ends. So why don't I switch over to your machine and you can show us the game that we're going to be working with.
All right.
So here we go.
All right. Yeah. So this is the very, very, very basic game that I threw together for this. I guess I'll start by just running it to show what we got. It's extremely simple. But basically, as the text says, you use the arrow keys to move the square and dodge the falling spikes. It's not difficult at all, but it'll give you a point every time you dodge one successfully. And then at the end, it says, enter your information to receive a receipt of your score. So you can do that, and when you hit submit, once we have the notifications at least, you will be able to receive a phone, text, or email with your score and whatever message if you want to send a message to yourself. So this is just one of the same thing would happen in Package Person for when you first got on the leaderboard. So I just kind of took that and put in this game because that was the simplest notification for that, because creating a leaderboard is a little bit more effort than we have time for.
Yeah, that's fine. So this is a game. It's built on the Unity engine, and it's using C# as the language. Do you want to kind of give an overview of like what it took to build the game as we have here? So just kind of walk through the code
Yeah.
quickly? Yeah.
So basically, if you haven't used Unity before, I guess the first thing to know is that everything in Unity is based on game objects, which are what these things over here in this hierarchy are called.
Okay.
So for example, the player game object is this square. And if I have this player game object selected, you can look over in this panel called the inspector, and you'll see it has several of what you call components attached to it. So the first component is the sprite renderer. That's just allows us to see that it's a square. It's just like if you have an image, it would go there. Second one is box collider 2D. And what that does is it allows for it to detect collisions such as the falling spikes. And then finally, we have this player control component, which is actually, you know how it says script there? That's because I wrote that one. That did not come standard with Unity. So if I click this little thing and then edit script, we can pop over to VS Code, and here is the player control script. So this is very simple, but basically what it does is every frame, so normally you think maybe 60 frames per second or so, it'll check, are we pressing the left arrow key? And are we in bounds? If so, we're going to move to the left. That's basically what this is doing.
Okay.
And then it does the same thing for the right. And then because people on different machines have different frame rates depending on how good your computer is, what you do here is multiply by time.delta time, which is the amount of time that has passed when this gets executed since the beginning of the frame. And so that keeps the speed of the movement independent of the frame rate of the machine. So that way you're not like moving 60 times faster if you're going like if you have a frame rate that's 60 times higher.
Yeah, I remember. So back in college, one of the projects that I had to do was we did Battle Tank, and we had to program that using Java, and we didn't have like any of these frameworks. There was no Unity, and so we had to do all of that. But we did not take into account like the different speeds of the machines. And so whenever somebody who came like the next year, because everybody at my college got laptops, and everybody got the same one. And so like the next year, everybody got, the next better laptop. And it was like a leap ahead of ours. And so like they would play our game to like figure out like what they had to do. And it was just like zoom, 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 zoom. Like everything like flew off the screen and whenever they hit the key once. So this is cool that there's like, this framework that kind of helps you figure out all of that math.
Yeah, they definitely make things a lot easier nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's for the control, and then down here we have this this method on collision enter 2D, and so what this does is it detects. This gets called when something, for example, the falling spikes hit the object, and so once that gets called, I just have a line here that's calling my game over method, which is in a different script attached to a different game object, which is what this is doing. So if we go over, I have 4 scripts total here. We can go over the rain spikes. What this one does, this is attached to, where is this? Oh, it's attached to the rain game object. That's all it has is rain spikes. And as you can see, it takes what we call a prefab, which is sort of like a saved clone or template for this game object. For example, if I wanted the player to be a prefab, all I have to do is drag it into the assets folder, and now I can just like create more players like that.
Okay.
Which is very handy. So that's why I do it with the spikes, because we're obviously going to have more than one raindrop coming. And prefab. I just broke something. All right, I fixed it. So what we have here in this script is we're taking the reference to that spike prefab.
Okay.
And so that way this script knows what to instantiate. So what we have it doing is as soon as the script is loaded, so right when you hit play, the start method is called. That's just a callback in Unity.
Okay.
And then we have it calling the start rain method. So I really could have just put this line in here, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do more with it later.
Sure.
And what this is doing is it's calling another thing, which is actually a coroutine. So a coroutine, they're kind of a little bit more of an advanced topic, but basically they allow things to continue running across different frames, because normally like a method would just execute entirely in one frame.
Okay.
But if you have a coroutine, what I can do is put a while loop there that could potentially go infinitely, but that's all right, because as long as I put like a yield return null or yield return new wait for seconds, it's going to pause the execution once it gets there, and then it'll resume it either next frame, or in this case, the amount of time that we specified, which is 0.75 seconds. So what this is doing here is every 0.75 seconds, we are instantiating a new spike, and we're instantiating that in a random x position at a set altitude. And then here we're just setting its rotation to be so that the spiky end is down.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say?
Yeah, so we've covered the player moving back and forth and what happens whenever it collides. And now we just covered creating all the spikes and making them rain down, right?
Yeah. So I guess the spike itself, each spike, much like the player, we got the sprite renderer, just allows you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got, this one is not shaped like a box, so I use the polygon collider to fit its shape a little bit better. And then it's got what the important thing it has here is a rigid body 2D. So since we're using Unity in the 2D mode right now, all the components that deal with physics are going to have a 2D appended to them.
Okay.
But normally, if it's 3D, then you have a rigid body. It works basically the same way, but it's just not 2D. So what this does is it allows it to use physics, essentially. So with this attached, it experiences gravity. And so that's what's making it fall, is literally just Unity's gravity.
Okay.
And then there's other things we can do, such as freeze position, rotation, if we want to. We don't really need that for the rain, though. And you can adjust this mass and like how much drag it experiences. So adjusting the drag is how I got the speed to be all nice, so that's not falling too fast or too slow. And then you can adjust the amount of gravity it experiences as well. And then I also attached a despawner script that I wrote, and all this does is once it gets below a certain position, it just destroys itself. So that way we don't have like if you're playing for a while, you don't just get bogged up with 1,000 spikes just falling infinitely.
Yeah.
Slow your game down.
So it sounds like one thing that you could do kind of as an addition to this is use kind of the physics engine, the game engine, to like kind of randomly resize spikes and make them maybe heavier so they fall faster.
Oh, absolutely.
Kind of add some difficulty to it as well.
Yeah, you can definitely randomize so much in this game if you took the time.
Nice.
Yeah, you could do size, you could do mass, you could even do behavior. You could make some of them come from below if you really want to be tricky.
Okay.
But and then I guess the last script is just this. I have a game manager, which basically just updates the text, giving you the score, and it keeps track of the score. And then at the end, it'll get rid of your player and then activate the UI at the for the game over.
Yeah, and so that's the game over, that UI. That's what we're going to end up using to make the call to Courier, right? So we get notification.
Basically, I have a game object for the gameplay, which is what we were looking at, and then one for the game over screen, and then you can just activate and deactivate them to switch between them. since they're very simple. If you had something more complex, then you'd want to change the entire scene. Because Unity just like focus on different scenes, which you think of like as in a game, like it'd be different levels is a different scene, but also normally different menus are. But since this is simple enough, we can.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal to just deactivate things.
Oh, this sounds. I mean, it's a good enough to get us to where we need to be. Cool. So I guess do we want to start working on the notifications?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay. So before we do that, I guess we should take a look at what we have here for what we're looking for in the notifications.
Okay.
So we're going to need name, phone number, email, and message. And then the notification will also be sending you your score. So we'll just have to keep that in mind as we create our notifications. And so here I am logged into Courier.
So just to recap, you've demoed the game. So falling spikes, we avoid them. Whenever we dodge them, we gain points. Whenever we finally get hit by a spike, then it provides it provides this form to where we can get a receipt for our score. And so what we want to do is prompt the people to put in the information, their email, their phone number, so we can send an email or a text and send that notification to them. And so what we're doing now is we're going into Courier and we're going to build these notifications. And then once we have them built and we could even test them inside Courier, we could go back and add the code to make this start working. Yeah,
that's the plan. Yeah, because that's a good thing to know is that I didn't actually put any of the notification code in this version of the game that we were looking at yet. So we will be doing that later.
Okay, great.
All right, so I'm going to create a notification. And we are going to be using both SMS and email we'll shoot for. So I have configured already Mailjet and Twilio. So Mailjet will be for email and Twilio will be for SMS. So those I had done back when I was making the BitCamp project. So we should probably title this notification Spiky Game Notification. All right, let's see. All right, so clicking on my email template, as you can see, it defaulted to the...
Yeah, your default brand is set up for package person.
It is set up for package person. I forget where you changed the brand, to be honest.
Tejas loves the logo. If you go into the settings next to the notification name, you can select another one. But if you only have one brand...
I think
Okay, so so the default brand there, it's not... It's
Demo Brand. I think Demo Brand's the other one I made.
Okay.
Just like, there we go.
That works.
So this one is package free.
Yeah.
And then, so let's think of a nice email. Oops, that's not what I wanted to say. Oh no. Whoops, I did not mean to hit that. Where's my...
That's okay. Everything's saved.
Spiky notification. There we go. All right. This is what I meant to say. All right. So we'll write our email. We'll say hello, and then we're going to want to use the data from the game in our email. So like call the person by their name. So in order to do that, we're going to say that we're going to have a variable called player name, and that will be replaced by the player's name once the form is submitted.
Yep. Yeah, we can send that value over in the data object.
Yeah, and then let's make this a big text.
Nice big text.
Yeah, and then let's see. You recently scored, and then let's do our score variable. While playing the spiky game.
Nice.
And then All right, so we'll do something a little fun here. So we had that over in Unity. We had this memo field. So what we could do if we wanted is make it so that it only displays the memo field if the person actually submitted a memo.
That's a gap.
So we can add that as a conditional here. So
that's right. I think your project has used the most conditionals I've ever seen in a hackathon project.
yeah, well, I mean, it made it a lot easier than figuring out all the logic on the C# side, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too.
Yeah, so let's put that in italics maybe, and then here we can put the memo. Wait a second, actually. Let's make that like a quote.
Oh yeah.
Just get a little fancy there. Memo. All right, and then we'll add the conditionals. So we're gonna say if memo is not empty, then the memo will be displayed. And also we should do the same for this because otherwise it wouldn't really make sense.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
All right. And then I guess we'll just say you should play again sometime. All right, that's a notification for you.
Yeah.
And then I guess we could do the subject. Spiky game update. All right. Didn't mean to do that.
See, Suha says at the very end, and is clickable to toggle it to or. Yeah. So in the conditional section, if you had kind of a more complicated, in the conditional modal, if you had like a more complicated thing where you wanted to show or hide it based on like multiple things, you could say that it's this and that, or this or that, just by toggling that and or in there. Yeah.
Sorry. I accidentally had a conditional. I thought I clicked on something else.
Yeah.
All right. So now we can go over to our SMS and make this really easy.
Yeah. We
can just start dragging, because even though we don't have the same formatting, obviously, because there isn't really any formatting to do.
Yeah.
All the logic's still the same. And
I think we got two memos in there.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, you had the one. You had the.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is kind of something that's interesting. Like the quote block in text just becomes whatever you typed surrounded by quotes.
Simple enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So.
And then what's also interesting to note, we're dragging and dropping along. Those conditionals that you set on those blocks have persisted to the text as well. So you don't have to go and like add those conditionals again. It's going to remember those because they're shared components.
Oh yeah, one thing I did miss though is I needed to switch from hide to show if I'm doing is not empty.
Yeah. So if you change it there, it's going to change it on the other.
Yeah.
One too, so
and I'll have to do that there. All right, now we should be good.
All right.
So let's head over to preview and make a test event. So for our data, we know what we'll need. So let's start with player name. I'm going to call our player Billy.
Billy.
And then let's see, score. Yeah. What will Billy score? Billy will score 4. I needed commas there, I think.
And then I think so. I the last piece of information that we need is memo. But let's create this first one without memo, and then we can create another test case with a memo, and then we can make sure that the hide and show is working. So whenever you create a second test case, it like duplicates the one that you're on.
Yeah. All right. I forget. So if we're leaving memo out, should I have that as an empty string or just?
I think you can just leave it out.
Okay. Omit it completely. Let's go.
And then I would give the event name, just say like no memo or something like that. Like we can do like no memo and with memo.
Memo free. All right. And then profile. We'll have a email. Email.
Ooh. We can use, like, if you want, you can use my demo email.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So it's aydrian.demo@gmail.com.
All right. And then do we want to do a phone number for this one?
We can. Let's skip the phone number just so we don't end up like doxing ourselves. But we'll believe that the phone number will work.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So that should be enough.
All right. Oh, it doesn't like something. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Ah.
All right. Create test event.
Okay. And so
there's.
This is what it looks like with the text, and there is no memo. So yeah, switch that to. So here's what it looks like. And the subject says Spiky Game Update. That's cool. Hello, Billy. We got the score in there. Okay, and this is the one without the memo. So let's go ahead and go back into your view test events. So right underneath there.
There we go.
And then hit new test event. And so do you see how it's memo free copy? So you can change that name to something.
Memo full.
Memo full. I bet you that's going to be like a product. It's going to that sounds like a SaaS product waiting to happen. Memo.
Oh, absolutely. All right.
And
memo.
You laugh, Tejas, but like Troy probably just went and bought that domain name if it doesn't exist.
It's a good deal. All right. I'll do better next time. All right. So let's. All right, we're on memo full now.
All right,
there we are.
And so we got those 2 extra blocks, and so we've verified with 2 different test events that our notification works in both cases. So if they have added a memo, we're taking care of it. If they didn't add a memo, then we're also taking care of that too. Very cool.
Yeah. All right, so then going over to the send. Oh, I guess we have to publish the changes first.
Always have to publish changes. We've done a very good job of like putting a lot of alerts up, because used to I would just forget to publish changes and then like nothing would send, and I'd be like, why isn't it sending?
Yeah. No, this makes it easy. Yeah. So I guess here is where we get to the little trick of the thing, because as you can see here, we've got example code with the SDKs for Python, Ruby, Java, Go, PHP, whatnot.
Yeah.
But we don't have one for C#, which is what Unity uses. So we'll just have to do a little bit more ourselves, which is fine. So when I was
a C# library is definitely on our list. I don't think we currently have anybody on staff that knows C#, but we are hiring. So if you want to do other things and happen to know C#, we'd love you to come on and like build a client library for us. Or if you're a community member and you want to use Courier and you want to use C# and help us build one, we would also love that as well.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, when I was in the hackathon making the package person, and I got to this stage, the way I went about creating the web requests from Unity was I just kind of based it off of what I saw in the curl example. So we can sort of do that here. So I'm going to go back to Unity now. Unless we want to send, do we want to send that test event or? I guess.
I think let's live dangerously and do it in production. Let's go ahead and wire it up.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident. So, all right. So we're gonna create a new script. So I'm gonna go to my scripts folder. I'm gonna right-click, create C# script, and then we're gonna call this notifications.
Sounds like a good name.
Yes. All right, I spelled that right. All right, and then I'm gonna double-click it, and we will see that by default, Unity filled in all this for us,
Okay.
which is very nice of it. We won't need all of it, but basically what it does here is it gives us this method that's going to be called before the first frame update. So essentially whenever the script is loaded, so for us, that'll be right at the beginning of the game.
Okay.
And then we have another method, which is a callback that's called every frame. So that's what I was using before to do things like movement and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, since we're just sending a notification, that's a one-time deal. We don't really need this for anything. So I'm just going to clear that out.
Okay.
And then, all right. So before we even get into the notifications part, we're going to need some references.
Okay.
So essentially, we need to get all this data that you're filling in the form into the script. So we're going to need a reference to each of these input fields.
Okay.
So if we look at one of the input fields, they have a component called text message pro input field. It's a very long thing, but basically that's what we're going to be getting. And so the way we do this is first we need to add another using statement. So this is like an import statement in other languages, if you're not familiar with C#. And we're going to import TM Pro, which just gives us the ability to use any of the text message pro things, such as we need for getting the inputs.
Okay.
And then we're going to create some public fields. So we're going to do a public TMP input field and then name input. And so just the reason why we're doing it public is so that anything that that's public is going to give us essentially one of these fields in the inspector, and so that'll allow us to drag the reference in directly. So, for example, we're going to end up putting this on this notification script on the game manager game object. So I'm just going to do that now so we can see what we're working with.
Okay.
So here's our script, and already you can see it's got a field for the name input.
Nice.
So the beautiful thing about Unity is all you got to do is drag name input literally right into there, and that field's been populated.
Nice.
And so we're gonna do the same thing for email input, and then we're gonna do the same thing for phone inputs, and then we're going to do the same thing for memo input. And then what else we need? We're going to need a reference to the game manager component. So I'm going to make that one private because that's if you can make it private, it's always a little bit better practice. And so this is where our score is stored. So we're going to need a reference to that in order to get the score. And then I'm going to make a const string event ID, and then we'll fill that in later. So that'll be the ID of the notification. And then we're going to do another one.
We could do that, or we could come up with an event ID and then we can map it to the notification ID. So there's two ways that you can handle it. You could either use the ID of the notification, which is like it's some kind of unique string. It usually doesn't look pretty. What I like to do in my code is to come up with an event string, something that's meaningful to me, and then I'm able to map that to the notification, and then so it's taken care of on the courier side.
Okay, so that's something we can do in courier is assign that our custom string to. Okay.
And what's nice is if you're like, I want to create a new notification for this game, but I don't want to like bring it over like immediately, you could create a new notification, and then whenever you're ready to like swap the notification out, you can like remove that event ID from that notification and add it to the other. And so like no code changes are needed to be made.
Oh, that's very good to know.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. All right, so in that case, let's call this spiky update.
Yep.
All right, and then auth key we'll get later. So normally, for example, when I was doing the package person, what I did for the auth key, because I did end up putting it on GitHub, but I did not want to like put this public information out there because it's it's supposed to be your secret auth key.
Right.
So what I did was I made a folder in my assets folder in Unity, and I just called it untracked, and then I added that to the git ignore, and I had a script in there, a file in there that was just a struct that had the authorization key. And so I was able to just reference that so that the literal key was not in GitHub, but I could put all the rest of the logic on there.
Yeah, that's smart. I usually recommend people throw things in environment variables. I've not done a Unity game, so I don't know if they have that kind of concept of environment variables. I think
that's not something I've really dealt with.
But like with all of our client libraries, we try to, like, if the language supports environment variables, we try to make it very easy. So if you instantiate our client without putting in a auth token, it's going to try to look for that variable first, just because people don't usually check in the .env. And whenever you're working with like notifications, like you definitely don't want someone to scrape that off of GitHub and start sending messages on your behalf.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That would be something to look into. I never really had to need to look into the Unity environment variables, but that might be an option.
Cool.
So I guess first thing we're going to do in the start method is, so we have this private game manager here, and we need a reference to that. Instead of dragging it in, since we're already attached to the same game object here.
Okay.
While I'm over here, I might as well drag in these references now before I forget, because I always forget to do that. Cool. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So since we're already attached to the same game object as the game manager script, I'm just going to do game manager equals get component game manager. Oh, and that should be capitalized. So what I'm saying here is my variable game manager is looking for a component attached to the same game object that is called game manager. So I guess that was a little confusing because, but this is the name of the script, and then this is my reference to that script.
Okay.
So now next thing we are going to need is, so we're going to need a method that can be called from this button. So when you press the submit button, you're going to want the script to execute, obviously, the method to execute.
Right. This isn't like a per frame thing. Like we got rid of the update. We're not making updates per frame. We're waiting to do something until this action is performed.
Right. In order for that submit button to be useful, we need a method for it to call.
Okay.
So we're going to do a public void submit. And what this is going to do is this is going to call our coroutine in which we will be sending the notifications. So the way Unity works is you in order to like do any sort of web requests, you need that in a coroutine, because those things aren't guaranteed to take only the length of one frame if your internet's slow or something.
Okay.
So we're going to create a private, this is not going to make a lot of sense, but it's going to be called an enumerator, and that's what a coroutine is called in Unity. And it's going to be called, we're going to call this send notification. And then so when submit gets called, what we're going to want to do is start the coroutine of send notification, and that's all we'll need in the submit. So what this is saying is, as soon as we click that submit button, this coroutine will be started, and then it's going to take all the time it needs to complete, which may or may not be more than one frame.
Okay.
So yeah, so in our send notification, we're going to have to construct our form that's going to hold all of the data that's going to be sent to Courier.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, we are going to use a class called www.form, and let's call this form, and then we're going to just instantiate that to a new www.form. And now
we're going to use this to call the send API directly, which is really what the client libraries are doing underneath. So every language has their own kind of request library. We use Axios for JavaScript. We use I think it's just request for Python, and so on. But if we had an SDK, like this could be something that's underlying that we're actually calling.
Yeah, so this is actually my understanding of www form is that this is just going to hold the data.
Okay.
And then there's another class called Unity Web Request, and that's going to do the sending. And so we're going to give that this form.
Okay.
And then that'll take care of all that part. Yeah, so it's a little confusing. But the other thing we need to do is, now that we have, we're going to be doing some external networking stuff, is we're going to be needing to add another using statement. So we're going to be using Unity engine .networking. So we're going to have to explicitly say that in order for it to work. So now we can continue. So now that we have our empty form created, we need to add some fields to it. So we're going to do form.add field. And then I guess, so the first thing we're going to need, if we go over and look at this, we got the event.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the form. We basically need like everything that's in this curl request.
Okay.
So we're going to add a field for event, and we're going to put the value of that as our event ID.
Yep.
And then we can do form and add another field. And this one can be we do have to explicitly give the recipient a name, right? Or do
we need a recipient ID, yeah. So just recipient. And that can be, that could be any string value.
Yeah, so my thought with that was just give it whatever's in the name field here.
Okay.
Just to keep things simple on the other end of it. So we can do name input, and then .text is how you get the value of whatever is in the input field.
Okay.
And then we're going to add another field, form add field. So let's see what else we got. Do we still need to specify the override even if
we don't need to specify it. That's an optional field, and we're not using anything for it, so you can just skip it.
Skip that. All right. Then we can do the data next then.
Okay.
So we'll do data, and now we got to make some a little bit of these JSON looking structures. So this will take a little bit. Fortunately, I do have this written out over here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it in because I don't want to be typing this for the next.
Oh yeah.
Minutes, but,
so you're basically just constructing a string that is a JSON string with the values from these inputs.
Yeah. So what we have here, we got strings and strings, which is why we're escaping so many quotation marks. But we're saying the value of player name is going to be the value of the whatever string is in that name input field, which is the same thing we use for the recipient. And then we've got the score, and that's going to be, we can get that from the game manager script, because I have this get score method here. It's just a public method so that we can get whatever score it's holding.
Great.
Where'd it go? Notifications. And then we have our memo, which is going to be whatever text is in the memo input field. So it's just like getting the text from the input field.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's all our data. And then I think the last thing we need is the profile.
Yep. So because we're having the user input their email and their phone number, we're passing that inline as the profile. Now, if we had users saved, we could do a thing to where like the user that's saved in the game, like maybe you've put in your email and phone number like in some kind of settings, we could we could sync that to Courier, and we could save that with like whatever their recipient ID would be, like that representation in the game, and then we could just leave it at passing the recipient ID. And then what Courier will do is do an internal lookup for their information, so we don't have to like pass that field over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that definitely makes things easier for if you're doing that sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I ended up just pasting the profile stuff in here again. But we've got our email value, and once again, we're just getting the text value that's in the input field for email, and then same thing for the phone number down here. And so I believe that is all of our fields. So now we can move on to actually making the request. So in order to do that, we are going to do something a little fancy, but we're going to do using, and then in parentheses, in Unity web request www equals Unity web request dot post, and then we are going to, so if we look over here, they're going to the URL of api.courier.com/send.
Okay.
So I'm going to copy that and put that in here. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Oops. And then the last thing we need is we need to say what we're actually sending in this web request. So what we want to send, obviously, is our form with all of our data.
Nice.
So next, we're going to have to do a little bit more with this request in order for it to work. So one thing we need to do is set a header, a request header for this. So we're going to do set request header, and then for the authorization, it's going to be, I think if we look here,
bearer and then your
and
then your token.
So I'll have bearer and then space and then plus, and then it'll be the auth key.
Yeah.
And then, so now here's where we get to the actual coroutine portion of it. This is the fancy little thing that you can do in a coroutine that you can't do in a regular method.
Okay.
So we're going to do yield return www.send web request. And so that's not going to make a lot of sense. But basically, anytime there's a yield return something in a coroutine, that's saying we're going to pause the execution of this method until whatever the thing that's being returned is finished with whatever it's supposed to do. Okay. So in this case, it's going to pause it until the request has been sent.
Okay. Yeah. So we're basically handling an async operation, which is making a post to the Courier API and waiting for it to respond.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly it. So now we got to do a little error handling. So if we do www.result is not equal to Unity web request .result .success, Then we're just gonna debug.log the error that we get. So in Unity, if you want to print something, like print to the console,
Okay.
Debug.log is what you use. It just outputs it.
Nice.
There. Yeah. So that's.
Oh,
that.
hey Riley, how's it going? You got somebody?
Oh, is somebody watching?
Yeah.
Nice.
We've got some viewers.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're not doing this for nothing. All right. So then, otherwise, if it's we have a successful send, then we can do a debug.log and then just say form upload complete. And then one other thing I had initially when I made this game was I did scene manager dot load scene 0, and so what this does is it reloads the scene that's in position 0 of the build index, which is just this scene. So basically, we're just restarting the game.
Nice.
So once we send the request, we hit submit, the request ends, game just restarts.
Yeah.
But the other thing I need to add for that is using the engine.
Hey Riley, we built a game that has falling spikes, and you have to dodge them. So every time you dodge them, you get a point score. And he's going to be demoing it here soon, so we can actually show Courier working. But once you get hit by a spike, you're prompted with this form that you can see on the screen, and you can fill it in and submit, and you kind of get a receipt of your score either emailed or texted to you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's if I'm remembering right, there's only one final thing that we have to do here to get this to work, which is we need to tell the submit button what to do when it's clicked.
Okay.
So obviously what we want to do is send that notification. So we need a reference to that script, that notification script that we just wrote. So that's attached to the game manager.
Okay.
So I'm just going to drag this into the buttons on click event thing here.
Okay.
And then I can select what function to be called. So if I go to notifications, this is our script here on this dropdown. We should see a submit.
Yep.
And there we go. So now when you click the button, it should call this method here, which will start this coroutine and submit all this form. And
so two things that I think that we need to do before this actually will work is we need to take care of the auth token.
Oh yes,
we haven't wired that up yet, and then we need to go into the notification and map the event that we selected to it. So the event.
Oh, you're right. I forgot we did change that. All right.
So if you want to go hit the little gear next to the name, and then go to events on the left, and then type in what we use for the event name.
I think it was it spiky update?
I think so. And then hit create, or so click on it and then you see create. Yeah. And so now
all right. Let me just double check that.
Yeah.
Yeah, spiky update. Nice.
Update. Sweet. Okay, so that's mapped. You can just close that window.
All right.
Off somewhere.
All right. Now we need our auth token.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy that.
Do you need me to like take you off screen? Or how are you going to put this in so we don't reveal your auth token?
I can just drag this over here, paste it in, and then scroll down.
The second monitor, every streamer's best friend.
Yes. All right. Yeah, let me. All right. There we go. And it's gone. All right. So now.
Oh my gosh. So I think we're ready to do a live test.
I think we are. I think the last thing I need to do is just reset the UI. So that we're back with gameplay. And now let's go for it.
Yep. So here you go, Riley. Here's the gameplay.
Yeah. Very extremely simple. You're just you score a point every time you don't get hit by
Yeah.
red thing, the spike.
Like I have an idea for a game is we turn that box into a courier logo, and then the diamonds, we make them randomly come up with like different providers, and we have to catch them with the courier logo. But maybe some providers are heavier than others and they fall faster. And then that's what we get the points.
Yeah, that would be cool. All right. So there I died. And so now here's our form.
Yep.
So yeah, do we want to use your
you can use
your email?
You can use my email, because what we can do is we can go into the logs in Courier, and you can actually see where it's rendered. So just go ahead and you can go ahead and use my information.
All right. Let's see here, Adrian.
And then
we'll skip that, I guess.
Skip the phone number, and then you can just do adrian.demo@gmail.com.
All right. One other thing to note, I didn't do any input validation whatsoever. So if you're making this yourself, you might want to do
that. Yeah. We'll fix that in post.
Yeah. This is just a very, we're relying on us knowing what to put in this form, which we do.
Yeah.
All right. Then memo, this was fun.
Nice.
All right. And we're going to hit submit. And so as you saw, it waited a second, and then we're back in the game because I just told it to play again.
Okay.
But yeah, we can exit the game.
We have a question. What is the memo?
Oh yeah, the memo is basically for our notification. What we did was we said you can input this memo, which when you receive your receipt of your score, it'll just, if you have a memo inputted, it'll say that on the receipt. So you can just send a message to yourself, basically.
Just a little note, something to remind you. I don't know. Yeah. You can say it was 75 and sunny when playing. Okay, so now if we go into the data, hopefully we'll see a new notification.
All right. It was sent, it looks like 46 seconds ago.
There we go. We can see that it was sent with Mailjet. I see the little logo there. If you click on rendered on the left side, so under the timeline, you can actually click on rendered.
I see.
And that will give you a preview of what should be in the mailbox. Yeah.
All right.
And so there we go. That's all the information that he typed in. And you can see some other information about like what came back from Mailjet. If I opened it, you could see the event when it was opened. You can see the information that was passed over from your call. So I love the logs. There's lots of information in there, and it's always the first place I go whenever I mess up, because it pretty much has all the information I need. Whether it was I didn't send the right thing to courier, or something happened with the provider.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize there was so much detail to be found here. So that's very, very helpful.
So we did it.
Yeah. It looks like all the fields populated correctly and all that. But yeah, so that's I guess that's all I had planned. I don't know if there's anything else we want to do.
No, we did it, and like we're like just under an hour, so like this has been perfect. And like this is, I already have ideas for like, I mean, I've said them throughout, like things that we could do to like change the game and make it more difficult. But this is kind of a cool start to like programming a game.
Yeah, I definitely encourage you to try out Unity if you haven't, because it's you can, if you're using it personally, it's completely free, and it's very fun and easy to get into. So
now, like, I'm a Mac person, so like, is there a Unity for Mac?
Oh yeah, it was. I think it was originally only on Mac.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, you're working on Windows, so
yeah.
If we wanted to like, release this game, like
yes, so you go to the build settings here, and then you can specify whatever platform you want.
Oh, nice. That's great. Like,
yeah.
I might have to play with this. Like, maybe I do want to do the courier logo one that captures the notifications. I think that would be fun to like kind of put out with a blog with one of the blog posts that we put out. So people can like download and play the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So okay. So you can cross compile it. That's awesome. But yeah, fairly easy to go ahead and put things into Unity. You do use the Unity web request library, and you have to construct the REST post request yourself. But that seemed pretty straightforward. Create the form and then pass it to that function. I think something to note is that it does need to be inside of a coroutine because of the frame refreshes. But yeah, this was cool.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and I will say, doing the notifications, like stuff like this is like some of the most complicated things you can do when getting started with Unity. Making the actual game itself is a lot easier, in my opinion, just because it's a lot more intuitive than a lot of this coroutine stuff and these the request stuff. So don't let this intimidate you if you don't really understand what's going on here. There's plenty of examples.
Says, is this game open sourced? And I believe do you have a GitHub repo?
It is on. I do have it on GitHub. So okay. I have a branch. The main branch has the notifications already implemented, and then I have another branch that I'm currently working from called Missing Notifications, which is how we started this tutorial with just. So everything's there except the notifications.
Yeah, let me see. I think I have that link. If not, I can have you send it to me in private chat.
Yeah, I think I emailed it to you.
Let me. Oh no, where's my email?
I didn't get a chance to add any fancy README to the repository or anything. It's basically literally just what we're seeing here. But I guess that's what this video is for.
That's fine. I'm just trying to see if I can throw this in chat for people to see. Here's the GitHub. Okay, cool. So let's copy link address, and I'm going to throw this in the chat. That looks good. And so in the chat, we've got the github.com/graybearmtw Courier Unity integration demo. And so all of the code that we've been working with, you can see that there. And you could even use that as a jumping off point. Maybe you want to do a little more. You can go to Courier, sign up for a free account, add your own email and SMS providers, and make your game start sending notifications.
Yeah, I encourage anyone to do that. Y'all have free permission to use that code in repository for whatever. I really don't care.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a little late for us on the East Coast, but I think this was a lot of fun, and we will be back with another Courier Live on a Wednesday. Let us know if you like this later time. We've been doing this at noon Pacific, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, but we're kind of playing around with the schedule to see what works best for people. But until then, make sure you follow, get notified whenever we go live. Let me throw up my banner here. And you can always find us in the Courier Discord. So it's discord.gg/Courier. Join our community, ask your questions. We're happy to talk to you. All of our engineers are in there. But yeah, other than that, it's been fun. Thank you, Matt. And thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.